In July, this month, we are talking all about routines and how they relate to goals, how to set a goal, to work on a routine, etc. This is probably one of the most requested topics. And truthfully, whenever I have the word routine in a title of a video, whether it's a live or a vlog or whatever, that people like, it gets more clicks than anything else, which tells me that people are interested in routines. So last week we kind of did routines 101. We talked about the definition. We talked about how it relates to goals. We talked about some mindsets around your routines. This week we're talking about designing the routine, because step one for any goal is to get clear on what that goal looks like for you. You can't just say, I'm going to have a goal to have a morning routine and then start it tomorrow. There are some things you've got to think about and do behind the scenes prep work in advance. So step one is getting clear on what that routine could look like. Just like there is 1,000,001 ways to achieve a goal, there are 1,000,001 different ways for you to work on and implement a routine. Before we go through the steps today, I want to give you the reminder one more time that you are always allowed to change your mind. And in fact, you probably will. I always find that as soon as I film a video about a routine of mine, something about it changes. I did a live I say a couple of weeks, but I actually think at this point it was a month or two ago, about my recurring tasks, like monthly and weekly tasks. And that system is still really working for me, but I've already changed things about it that I shared in that live. It doesn't mean that routine was bad or it doesn't work. It just means that I had to shift something or tweak something to have it work better for me, my life, my goals, etc. So when you go through these steps today, I don't want you to think that like this is the end all be all for this specific routine, because it's not. Now, before we go through the steps, I would love for you, especially if you're watching the replay, but even if you're here live, I want you to think about a routine. I want you to have a routine in your mind that you are thinking about as we go through these steps. What we're going to do is I'm going to give you the 5 steps, and then I'm going to give you some examples. We're going to talk through some examples that you actually gave me on last week's call. But I want you to think about what routine are you going to have in your head while we're going through this today. Step 1. This should not surprise anybody. Why do you want this routine? Ask yourself, why do I want to create this routine? Here's a couple of main reasons why we want routines. Is it to feel a certain way? Do you want to feel one way or another, either during the routine or when you're done with it? There was someone I worked with one-on-one once who wanted to have a morning routine. And she told me that the biggest reason she wanted a morning routine was so that she would feel some calm and some peace in the morning before she got to her job that was always chaotic and all over the place. And that was what was important to her, was that calm, serenity, peaceful feeling being a part of her morning. Is it a transitional routine? A lot of comments about a pre-work, post-work, a transitional routine. Is it meant to get you from one place to the next? Are you trying to change your hat, your metaphorical hat, from your work hat to your mom hat? Are you trying to change it from your mom hat to your work hat? Are you trying to change it from your at-home self to your in-person work self? Is it a transitional routine? Is it so that you don't forget to do certain things? That's a lot of my routines, is I set up routines so that I don't forget to do steps that are important to me. There's a lot going on in the day. There's a lot going on in my mind. There's a lot going on in life. And so if I don't have these routines set up, some of these things can fall by the wayside. And so it doesn't have to be just one of these things, but these are just some questions to get you thinking. Why is this routine important to you? What is the driving factor of this routine? And I want you to have that foundation before you move on to any of the other steps, because I'm going to tell you right now, having a morning routine because everybody else has one is not a good reason. Or having an evening routine because I feel like I should is also not a good reason. I want you to have your individual reason why you want this routine, the feeling you want this routine to give you, what hats you're changing from one to another, or so that you don't forget to do certain things. Another one, a question I don't have here, but also I feel like holds true for me, is embracing my energy, right? I'm a morning person. By having a very robust morning routine, it allows me to embrace my morning energy and get more things done than later in the day. Number 2, step 2, how frequently do I want to do this routine? And then how much time do I have to dedicate to it. Now, when I say frequency, how frequently do I want to do it? There could be more than one step depending on the routine. A lot of you also commented about a cleaning routine. There are likely components that are daily and weekly, monthly, quarterly, all the things. So that answer could be more than one, right? There could be daily, weekly, etc. If it's a morning or an evening routine, is it something you want to do every day of the week? Is it work days? Is it just days you work in the office? What does that frequency look like? Then how much time do you have to dedicate to it on that frequency, right? If it is something every single day, keep that in mind. You might not have 3 hours a day to dedicate to a routine every single morning. But if it is a weekly routine, you might have 3 hours to dedicate to it. We've talked about this before with cleaning routines. Is do you see yourself as more of a little bit every day over the course of the week, or one day a week powering through and getting the whole thing done? How frequently do you want to do it? And how much time do you have to dedicate to it? The last thing I want to say on this before we move on, I want you to be honest with yourself. Okay? Do not say, well, if I start getting up at 5 a.m., then I have 3 hours. How often are you getting up at 5 a.m.? If that is something that you want to work on, that's a different goal. Getting up early is a different step towards working on that morning routine. But right now, how much time do you have to dedicate to it? When we pick or design a goal, especially a routine, based on some version of ourselves that does not actually exist yet, we are way more likely to not follow through on it because there's something that has to change first, right? You have to start getting up at 5 a.m. in order for that 3 hours to be feasible. I want you to design a routine right now with where you're at right now. So right now, what time do you get up and what time do you start work or leave for work or start childcare or whatever it is that you start that takes up the majority of your day? And if you don't have anything, if you can have the longest routine you want, awesome. Love that for you. Most of the members of our community have some sort of full-time commitment, whether it is a job or childcare, caring for a family member, something. You have something that takes up the majority of your day. If it is something that you want to do, let's say on the weekends, you want to do something every single week. I am not sitting here telling you to say that like you can never miss a week, because that's not how that's going to work. And on the last week of this topic, we're going to talk about when life gets in the way and like when you miss a week and when you go on vacation, etc. But on a regular basis, assuming regular stuff, how much time do you have to dedicate to it? I also think Lila Palooza would be an awesome theme every year. I think eventually she'll probably pick her own themes, but like, I also feel like she could just use it for forever. Okay. Sorry, got distracted. Okay. Number 3, step 3. I want you to brainstorm all the steps you could possibly include. This is like, there's kind of 3A and 3B here. All the steps you could possibly include. Now, what I don't want you to do is go Google things people include in their morning routine. If it does not come out of your brain when you're brainstorming, it's not important to you. Maybe you'll think of it later and you can always add it in later. That's great. That's fine. But off the top of your head, what are all the steps that you could possibly include? What are all the things that you could do? Get them all out of your head. All the steps. It doesn't mean that you're going to do them all. It definitely doesn't mean you're going to do them all on day 1. But I want you to get all the ideas and brainstorm them all out of your head. Then I want you to jot down, again, we are not being data scientists. We are not trying to be super mathematical here, how long you estimate each of those steps taking or that they could take, right? There are some steps that are likely part of your routines that could take anywhere from, you could spend 5 minutes reading, you could spend an hour reading. Then there are going to be steps that you're like, this is going to take 1 minute. That's fine. Taking your vitamins takes 1 minute. Brushing your teeth, according to my toothbrush, takes 2 minutes. And then there are some steps that I will leave a longer amount of time, but sometimes it takes me less. So for example, in my evening routine, there's a step that says shower/wash face. And I have set aside 10 minutes for it. If I am taking a shower and washing my hair, it will take me closer to that 10 minutes. Sometimes not even then. Y'all know I'm a bath girl. I don't like showers. If I'm taking a shower, it's going to take as the least amount of time as possible. But if I'm not showering and I'm just washing my face, it doesn't take me the full 10 minutes. But I would rather err on the side of what it could take me at the max. So if I was doing this exercise, I would say, 2 to 10 minutes. If I'm just washing my face, it's 2 minutes. If I'm just showering and not washing my hair, it's somewhere in the middle. And then if I'm showering and washing my hair, it could be up to 10. So the range might be that based on the options, but the range, like I said, with reading could also be up to you. If you have the time, it could be 60 minutes of reading. If you are trying to squeeze in as many steps as possible, it could be 5 minutes of reading. Again, I want to underline and emphasize the word estimate. You are guessing here. This is not rocket science. We are not trying to put together a jigsaw puzzle. We are just thinking about how long these steps could possibly take. Okay, step 4. We're going to prioritize them. Now, if you feel open to just putting numbers, starting at the top, working your way down, number 1, number 2, number 3, all the way down, or vice versa. If you're like, I could start with the least important first. This is definitely the least important, and then work your way backwards. If you aren't comfortable or you're not confident in giving them exact numbers, you could just do buckets. Tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. If you watch my Plan With Me video from Monday, I started doing that with my to-do list, and it is working for me. I break my weekly to-do list down between ASAP, sometime this week, and eventually. Sometimes I get to the eventually things, and sometimes I don't. It just gets moved on to the next week, and sometimes it moves up over the weeks until it then becomes an ASAP thing, right? Ultimately, we are not looking for perfection here. We are not looking for like the most perfectly list of 1 through 10. I just want you to somewhat prioritize them so that they are not just a jumbled list of ideas. I also want to remind you, nobody's looking at this. Nobody cares what your priorities are. Nobody, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to everybody on this chat. It doesn't matter. What matters is what you want. Where do you want to prioritize these things? If it is more important to you to get the bathroom clean over cleaning the floors, great. Bathroom goes higher than the floors. If it is more important to you to light the candle rather than wipe off your desk, great. That goes higher. I don't care. It is what is important to you. And when you are doing this, if you're struggling at all, go back to number 1. Why? Does this thing on your list get you closer to this why? If the answer is yes, put it higher. If the answer is no, put it lower. That can help you prioritize. And then step 5 is going to be to kind of actually work on the jigsaw puzzle a little bit. Sketch out what this routine could look like with the information that you have right now. That's all you have. All you have is right now. So putting all those puzzle pieces together, you are going to put down what this routine could look like. Now, again, I'm not telling you you're going to wake up tomorrow and start this routine and do it perfectly every day for the rest of forever. Nope, we're going to talk about implementation next week. But I want you to have a rough thought of what this routine could look like for you. I'm going to get to this when we get to the example. Never mind. Okay. I'm going to check the, okay. Let's talk about some examples. And I had most of these examples on my list. I swapped out one based on your comments, but a lot of the comments was one of these. We're going to talk about 5. So the first one is your morning routine. This is really, really common. Things I want you to keep in mind for your morning routine. If you're not a morning person, this could be this big. I think we all have a morning routine of some kind. There are certain things you do every morning. Now, just because you have a routine doesn't mean you have to do it in the same order every single day. If that sounds monotonous and boring to you, don't do it. You can do them in different orders. You can do them at different times in the morning. You do what works for you. But keep in mind your energy levels in the morning, how much time you have to dedicate, and what is important to you about the morning. Okay? Everybody's priorities in terms of what their day looks like is going to be different. And this also shifts a lot over time. I think I shared this on last week's live, but my morning routine has shifted a lot from I started it when I was working a full-time job in an office. That was what my morning routine was initially based on somebody who had to take a subway to an office a certain time every single day. Then it shifted to, okay, now I'm a person who has to be logged on her computer at a certain time, but I am at home. I don't have to get fully dressed and I don't have to commute anymore. Then it shifted to somebody who was in the office part-time. So my days look different. Then it shifted to somebody who works for herself, but I'm only in control of my own time. And now it's somebody who has their morning very much dictated by a little tiny human, but I still work for myself. I'm still a morning person. And now that my sleep is on the better side, I can actually embrace that morning energy now. There are certain steps that have not left my morning routine in that entire journey that we just talked about over the last 4.5 years, almost 5. But there are certain steps that have moved and gone to different parts of my day because that's not a priority for me when it comes to my morning routine. But again, I think the most important thing to remember here is be realistic. You're not going to be somebody that just wakes up at 5 a.m. starting tomorrow. If you want to have more time for this, you are either going to have to get up earlier or start your commitment later, and just keep that in mind. Evening routine. This one, almost the same thing, but on the other end of the day. Keep in mind your energy levels. Now, some of you are night owls, and so your evening routine can look much more robust than somebody who is a morning person. I know as a morning person, I'm going to keep my evening routine as minimal as possible. The other thing I want you to remember here with an evening routine is that's kind of what, like the blanket statement. This could mean a number of different things. This could be a earlier in the evening routine, before dinner, slightly after dinner. This could be a after the kids go to bed, but I'm not going to bed, or it could be an actual bedtime routine. Some of the comments said bedtime routine. In my mind, those could be different things. You could have an evening routine and a bedtime routine. I don't want more than one evening routine because one is plenty for me as a morning person. So I'm going to lump them all in together. My anchor is when my daughter goes to bed. That's when I start my evening routine. It's got very few steps. I power through them. And then depending on how I'm feeling for the day, I either go to bed or I may do something else in between there. But again, not a requirement, but the key thing I want you to think here is where this falls in your evening. What are you going to anchor it to? Is it going to be something earlier in the evening, or is it going to be like right before bed, or both? Cleaning routine. This was a very, wait. I have one more thing to say about these morning and evening routines. They don't have to be every day. I don't really care about doing mine on the weekends. It's not important to me. It's not as much of a priority. The things that are like key staples in my morning routine, feeding Charlie, taking my vitamins, those happen every morning, kind of regardless of whether I click play on morning routine. Same thing in the evening. Charlie gets fed. That's pretty much the only one that has to get done on the weekends. Okay. Cleaning routine. This is definitely one of those that the frequency is not necessarily going to be one thing. You probably are going to have different components. This routine is likely complicated. There's a lot of different moving pieces to it. The thing I want you to remember here with the cleaning routine is, somebody said it so beautifully in the comments. It is not something that if you miss it, like you, how do I say this? Trying to play catch up with something like this is going to make you always feel like you're behind and you're never going to be done. So while you may map out this ideal cleaning routine, it is not something that is necessarily going to happen exactly that way every week. And that does not necessarily mean that you're not making progress. So for me personally, I mapped out this beautiful cleaning routine that I really liked. It has daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly components to it, and it tackles our entire apartment. It also includes some decluttering. It includes like some deep cleaning things, etc. So I took this plan, right? And then I broke it down and I put it in with all my other routines. Like the daily stuff got put into my morning or evening routine. The weekly stuff got put into my weekly things, the monthly, so on and so forth. Since doing that, I have not done much more than I was doing before. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that I won't ever build my way up. And there might be times that I need to do more. And then there will be times that I feel like we are at a good baseline. I saw an Instagram post this morning that was like, insert frantic cleaning before company comes. And like, I can totally relate to that. And with what I'm doing right now, would I still feel like I have to do an extra level of cleaning before company comes? Yeah, I would. Like if my in-laws were coming tomorrow, there would be a lot of cleaning that needed to be done. But as long as I keep adding on and adding on steps, eventually I'll get to a place where that frantic pre-company cleaning will take me a little bit less time, and then a little bit less time, and a little bit less time. And it may never go away, but I will at least feel like I am in a better place. Also, when it comes to something like cleaning, this is where I really want you to remember that your priorities and what's important to you are just that. They're yours and they are for you. If you are completely grossed out by the floors being dirty at all, and vacuuming and mopping the floors every other day is important to you, but it means that your bathrooms only get touched once a month, fine. That is what is important to you. And, or if you are the complete opposite and the kitchen kind of looking messy doesn't really bother you all that much because your spouse is the one that does most of the cooking. But if the bathroom is dirty and the counter is gross and there's toothbrush or hair or whatever grosses you out, and so you want to wipe the bathroom counters every day, awesome. You do that. You do not have to explain yourself. You do not have to tell anybody, maybe the people you live with. The priorities for cleaning are yours and yours alone. Okay. Well, I'm taking a lot more time to talk this week than I anticipated. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay. Budget and finances. This one, to me, is a lot more mental. This routine is less, for the most part, like all of these other ones, is time. It's how much time do you have to do them? And what are you going to prioritize? This one, there's time. If you're tracking and I've said before, we've talked about this and we've talked about recently on a live, I've talked about a number of videos about budgeting. Track every day and make things easier. Then there's other finance steps that you could benefit from weekly, monthly, quarterly. It is not the most time consuming routine. It is more of a mental routine. And it is you being in the right headspace, and it is you focusing on the steps and not that you're doing a bad job or that you're not the best at things or whatever it is related to your finances that you struggle with mentally, because we all have them. One of the books I always recommend, right? I always get confused here. It's next to the avocado. It's called We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rodgers. Highly recommend. This one to me is about the time of day that you do it, where you're in a good headspace to do it, and focusing on the mental side of it. Okay, the last one, which is one I didn't have on my list originally, but a lot of you included in the comments, and that was routines about starting and ending your workdays. So these transitional routines where you are transitioning from home version of you to work version of you and back. So these are the types of routines that I would spend as much time as you can getting really clear on what that means to you. What's the feeling? What's the why? What does that transition look like to you? Then brainstorm, what are the steps that you could do that help with that? Is it lighting a certain candle? Is it changing in or out of something? Is it putting your hair up or down? Is it putting on socks or taking socks off? Is it eating something or drinking something specific? What are some of these steps that you could do that kind of get you in work mode or out of work mode? The other thing I want to say about these steps is they don't have to be long. This transition routine doesn't necessarily have to be like 30 minutes to an hour for you to feel like you transitioned. There could be 3 2-minute steps that you take 5 minutes on. I understand that math didn't quite work. Go along with it. And it still does its job. It still gives you that feeling. These are routines I don't feel like I've ever truly mastered. I feel like I've tried them in the past and I've never really figured them out. It's on my brainstorm list for Q4 potentially. But at the end of it, I also think, so the reason I say that is because I feel like with all these other ones, like the other examples I gave, I have figured it out for myself. And so I feel like I can confidently talk about how I can help you make it work for you. This one is harder for me because I don't feel like I've mastered it myself. But from what I do know about routines is this is one that is more about feeling and less about like actual tasks. And therefore it might take some trial and error to figure out what actually works for you. You might think that doing something on one of these routines helps you, and then you do it and it doesn't make a difference. So thinking about what you could try, being open to the idea that it may not actually work for you, and that's okay. This doesn't mean that you're a failure. It just means you got to try something different. So, okay, I'm going to stop talking because that was a lot. Any thoughts, questions, concerns? If you're feeling overwhelmed, take a deep breath. It does not have to be this perfectly mapped out plan for you to be able to start a routine. We are going to talk about implementing next week, so make sure you're subscribed. But it doesn't have to be this perfect plan, but you do need a place to start. You need some steps to start with, and you need a place to begin.